Welcome to K6 Wellness Revolution, where we believe health is worth fighting for. This podcast focuses on all things related to natural health, wellness, and vibrant living. We know your time is valuable, and I'm honored that you're spending some of it here. So get ready, because the Wellness Revolution starts right now.
Welcome to the K6 Wellness Revolution podcast. My name is Crystal, and I'll be your host, introducing you to the experts at K6 Wellness, where we'll discuss all things health and wellness because your health is worth fighting for. Today, we'll be speaking with Sharon Krahn, owner of the K6 Wellness Center in Dallas, Texas, who is a traditional naturopath, registered nurse, and bioset practitioner with over 17 years experience in functional wellness. Also joining us will be Elena Bach, who is a certified holistic health coach and whole body thermography specialist. Hello, ladies.
Hello, Crystal.
Welcome. Well, I'm very thankful for the topic you want to discuss today, which is how to deal with a hopeless diagnosis, focusing on the power of functional wellness and how it can significantly help people dealing with hopelessness. It just seems like so many people are suffering right now, or they know someone who is suffering, and people are searching for alternatives to conventional medicine, or at least something to complement their medical treatments. And I know there are so many strengths of conventional medicine, but it also has many shortcomings. I'm personally a huge fan of using a broad range of solutions and treatments that some might consider out of the box. But in my experience, it's empowering to be able to participate in your healing journey through diet, exercise, mindfulness, etc. I always think of it as kind of covering the gaps. But so our listeners kind of better understand what we're talking about. Let's start off with you guys both explaining what functional wellness is and how it differs from traditional healthcare approaches.
I think, functional wellness is the practice of looking beyond a list of symptoms or a label so we can understand where the true dysfunction lies in the body. And once we understand that, then we can see what message is the body giving us, because we're designed to heal. But sometimes we just need to be given the right tools. Western medicine primarily looks at how to suppress symptoms, whereas we're trying to get to the root cause of them.
Yeah. And just like in traditional Western medicine, you have specialists who deal with different areas of function or if different areas of disease. In functional medicine or functional wellness, it's kind of the same thing. You have, people who will delve into certain areas. Like we're specialists with whole body thermography, which, is not a therapy. It's investigative, but we also, I think, in general, anyone who does functional wellness or functional medicine is going beyond that symptom, where in Western medicine, we name the symptom as the disease. And in functional medicine, it's like, oh, but wait, that's a symptom. And we want to get beyond that. What's that underlying driver? What happened way back? How did this get started? And we use labs. Some of the stuff we use is the same thing, but we're not using clinical ranges because clinical ranges denote disease versus non-disease. Yeah. And it's strictly for an ICD-10 code. Can you label somebody as a clinically diagnosable issue? And in functional medicine, we may be looking at trends in labs over time, and it all may be within clinical ranges, but it doesn't mean that it's optimal. And so we're looking at a different measuring scale using some of the same labs, but we use many different labs, and we use thermography, and we use bioenergetic tools like electrodermal screening. And some people do muscle testing. Some people stay away from all of that. Some people use questionnaires. It's different for different people, but functional wellness is looking at things like sleep and exercise and food, your thoughts, your habits, your beliefs, all of the things that make up who we are, because it's not just one singular plane that we travel on to become diseased or healthy. It's a whole lot of things that make up our life and make up who we become or what we become and how good we feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't follow the conventional approach of treating symptoms first, which can create a patient for life, but instead functional medicine practitioners such as you and Elena work with your clients to identify the underlying cause of the symptoms to stop them at their source. It's amazing. What are some other examples, or what are some examples of medical conditions that are often considered hopeless diagnoses?
Well, I'll just say, I think autoimmune is usually one of the biggest ones. I mean, there's so many different types of autoimmunity. And usually when people get that, Western medicine doesn't have very many answers. I mean, that's my background. I was given a hopeless diagnosis, and I knew to look beyond that. And I'm glad I did, because there are no answers in the Western model. Mm-hmm. You will be on immunosuppressants the rest of your life. And so you know, there's so much more we can do beyond that.
Yeah. I think Elena's right. Autoimmune's definitely the biggest one, but you know, look at the general population. Many times cancer is considered a hopeless diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Lyme disease, mold sickness, even for infertility cases, sometimes that's considered mm-hmm. hopeless, because I think it's important. And maybe you intentionally brought it up that way, Crystal, but hopeless doesn't necessarily equal terminal, right? Like, you're not going to die from infertility, you know, but it can feel very hopeless because the system in place to correct that can be very taxing, very demeaning, very arduous, and very interruptive of a normal life. And especially with autoimmune, you know, it's, well, this is just where you're at, and we're just going to kind of turn down your immune system. But now you have to worry about all these infections. And if you listen to any pharmaceutical ad on TV, I don't even listen to TV. I stream. So I don't have to hear the commercials, but when I go to somebody's house who has a TV on, you can't help but hear a commercial for a drug. And when you listen to those side effects, oh my gosh. And I don't care if it's a diabetes drug or an immune suppressing drug for an autoimmune, you know, for lupus or for RA or whatever. It's horrible. Oh my goodness. It's horrible. Mm-hmm. And that makes it hopeless for a lot of people, because you got to pick, here's a terrible drug. Here's how crappy you feel right now. Which would you rather have? Those aren't good choices. And I think functional medicine offers a whole different realm of possibility.
Yeah, exactly like what you're saying. And that speaks to like the psychological and emotional challenges that can arise when someone is
Absolutely.
faced with a seemingly hopeless diagnosis. Can you speak to that, Elena?
Well, I think when people get a diagnosis, a lot of the time they're chasing that because they think that's going to give them an answer. But mm-hmm. instead, we see a lot of the time it creates an identity complex, because then suddenly people are being defined by that disease pattern and all those symptoms. But that doesn't have to be your story. Sometimes it's helpful to know, okay, you have the specific disease, so we know better how to support if you are fixated on getting that. But once you have that disease, it's like hope is gone. And hope is the most powerful thing we have. As long as you have that, then you can be mentally strong. And it's easy to just suddenly be hit by depression. I know even for me, some of the diagnoses that I received, for a split second, I let it take me down in the past, you know, but then I quickly knew, okay, this doesn't have to be my story. I'm not going to let it be my story. I'm not going to let a horrible drug be my story. And so I think once people get past that whole idea of a diagnosis, and a lot of those psychological and emotional challenges are going to go away, because when people walk in our door, we get to say, guess what? There's another way. So I think it's keeping hope right there is just going to be the most powerful thing that people can hold on to. So toss that diagnosis out the door. Let's look for answers.
Yeah. And even when you can't, sorry, I was going to ask that, but go ahead, Sharon.
No, I think that Elena's right. And sometimes people don't know what else to do but to wrap up their whole identity in a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And that's where you see people take on and put value in a condition or a diagnosis. And that can be very hard to turn somebody around if all of their identity for years has been wrapped up in, well, I have ... Okay. But is that who you are? And some people, it's who they become, that the emotions that drive it come from wherever they come from, life experiences, cellular memories, unresolved traumas, but it can really take hold and shape a person, and it can highly influence their willpower to change or their openness to trying something different. And that's like, take cancer. There's a book, a program called Healing Codes, and it goes into the emotions behind diseases. And with cancer, they say unforgiveness, I think it's bitterness, are two of the main driving emotions in cancer. But you have emotions tied to every organ in the body. For instance, and this is ancient wisdom. This is the ancient wisdom part of naturopathy. I love this stuff. So the liver is the seat of anger, and your lungs are the seat of grief. And if you think about like old people who've been married for a long time and one of them passes away, it's quite often that within the next 12 to 24 months, the one left behind will succumb to a lung condition, bronchitis, pneumonia. And it's thought that grief and sadness play a big role in that. Stomach, if you think about ulcers, what diseases do we get in the stomach? Well, we get ulcers. Worry is seated in the stomach. And my favorite is the large intestine, or colon. It's feeling stuck. Some of it makes so much sense. But yeah, emotions are connected to every organ. Therefore, emotions become tied up in whatever dis-ease, right? Or malady we're dealing with.
Yeah. Sounds like it can even affect the outcome of treatments for patients too.
For sure. If people aren't willing to change their perspective, or it's hard sometimes. And I think religion gets brought into it, and people want to go, oh, that's not right. The emotions are evil. We don't talk about those. We don't have emotions. We do have emotions, and God gave them to us.
Yes.
But being willing to address, hang-ups in resolving traumas or whatever it is, traumas and dramas in our life, I think it's essential to true healing.
Yeah, I agree. On the differences between a holistic or functional wellness approach and the conventional medical approach treating challenging conditions, what are those differences, and why doesn't the standard Western medicine work for health overall like that?
I think a big one that Sharon just touched on, emotions. That's a huge part. When we try to separate the emotional component or even the spiritual component to our physical wellness, we're missing a big piece. And a lot of people just don't go there. But then beyond that too, there's just this pattern of inappropriate meds that are being given to alter the expectations, but not to alter the body's ability to heal. And you look at a lot of these medications with the awful side effects, there's never an exit strategy. Even these commercials, they never say you're going to get better. It's going to say, oh, look at this pretty perfect picture of this mom or grandmother or dad playing with the kids in the sunshine and everything's all fine. And then they tell you all the side effects with no exit strategy. And I, for one, even with supplements, we talk to people all the time. We want an exit strategy from that. We don't want you on supplements the rest of your life. And we want you on as few as possible with little to no side effects. So that, you've got to always think, what is the exit strategy? Even if you aren't ready to jump away from your Western model, just ask yourself, ask your doctor, like, what is the exit strategy? It's good to be informed. But, we're also playing around with a corrupted system.
Oh, man.
Everything's corrupted. Our big pharma, big ag, everything is corporate and everything's connected. So you've got just problems in every direction you go if you're following the Western model. And, we always say Western medicine is great at saving lives. Sometimes you do need a broken bone put back in place, but they're not always
a life-saving operation.
Right. There's a time and a place, but Western medicine isn't always going to be the best at keeping you healthy. It's a sick care system, not a wellness and true healthcare system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Great explanation. How do these approaches complement or clash with each other in the context of hopeless diagnoses?
Well, I think that in Western medicine, and again, because I've got a foot in both worlds, I will say Western medicine puts great effort and has made great strides in life-saving surgeries, in life-saving therapies and technologies that can really do a lot. However, it's all based on managing data, and it has very little to do with the holistic view of a person, body, mind, and spirit. And, just like with cancer, we often tell people, look, you can poison yourself right out of a tumor using chemotherapy, radiation. You can absolutely do that. But those are poisons, and nobody disputes that. You're never, ever going to poison yourself into good health. And that's a fact. That's just what it is. Now, does that make all chemotherapy and radiation evil? No, not necessarily. I think, we've recently seen a very young client get a real aggressive cancer, and it was probably dead within a week or start chemo. And even the greatest specialists in the world convened with us and said, no, do the chemo. We'll figure it out. We'll undo damage. We'll repair after. So this is a good example of where Western medicine saves a life. But how will this young person be healthy going forward? And that's where functional wellness, and it's lifestyle medicine, right? It's spiritual peace. It's emotional resolution. It's good nutrition. It's healthy habits and healthy thoughts. And that's all really important. Functional wellness, functional medicine, our approach in general is, okay, yeah, I understand you have these symptoms. I'm real sorry. Why are they there? What are they telling us? What is the root cause? And that word is so overused. I'm so sorry. I feel terrible even saying it, but it's true. It's true. What's underneath that? Yeah. Right? Your presenting symptoms aren't the underlying problem. They're the sign. It's your body going, hello, please help. So we have to pay attention to symptoms. Yes. And even in holistic health or in functional medicine, there will be some symptom care, but we're much more interested in going back and saying, how did you get here? And that takes time. And a lot of times it's habits. It's the way we live our life, whether it's the food we put in our mouth, the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the sleep we don't get, the overstimulation to all of our senses all the time, whatever it is, that is the main difference, is that functional medicine isn't stopping at presenting symptoms. We're going way, way back.
Yeah. Well, how does functional wellness approach the concept of empowerment for an individual dealing with a challenging diagnosis? And what's an example scenario for a typical client that you would see?
Well, I think, empowerment is different for different people. Some people come to us and they are empowered, and that is how they found us, by golly. And then there are people who, Elena and I have often said, we're not usually the first stop on somebody's journey.
Hardly ever.
Yeah. And this is a true story. I had a gal come to me, young woman. It was real tragic. She had been adopted out of a Romanian orphanage. She had a horrible childhood, and she was like way back when Romania was first opened up for adoption. And she remembers eating rocks, chewing on rocks to have something to eat, and her teeth showed it. She came to me and said, I'm giving you 6 weeks, and if you cannot fix me, I'm going to kill myself.
Oh my goodness.
Now there's a whole lot that we could unravel on that. It was horrifying to me to see, number one, this person had been everywhere and had done everything and obviously did not have any hope. And she was only satisfying a family member's request.
Wow.
And I'll skip a lot of the details, but we were able to help her. there was a lot of talking her off a 6-week timeline. I think you get people with years of symptoms, signs that have only been medicated and have never been resolved, and people give up hope. And I think that it is such a gradual downhill decline in health that we forget. I mean, this is our own story. I forgot what it felt like to feel good. I forgot how energized and how powerful I felt running after I had my third child and couldn't get out of a chair. I forgot all of that. And I thought, oh, this is just what motherhood is. And that's not what motherhood is. That's what sick motherhood is, right? Yeah. We do see it in women more than men. And it's usually women of reproductive age. There's a lot going on with your hormones. With younger children, they can come to us. We can get a 6-year-old in here whose whole life has been nothing but what we see as an overflow of toxicity. But to the world and to their medical doctor, it's ADHD or it's autism or it's uncontrollable eczema or asthma or, name it. But when you look at all of these things, what do they share in common? Well, there's usually an overflow of toxicity, like I just mentioned. Women tend to, the thought is, I'm not going to say this as fact because I don't know, but the thought is because women are dealing with so many more hormone fluctuations that they tend to be more vulnerable to autoimmune or chronic health issues, especially during the reproductive years. And if you look at it too, most people have already tried medications or are on meds. And honestly, more people are on psych meds than anything else. They're not coming in for depression and anxiety, but they are on an antidepressant or an antipsychotic. And it's only to manage their expectations of their disease or their label. And that's really sad to us. And that's why, we look at it and go, let's go a little further back. Look at obesity. I mean, I think they said 40% of America is obese maybe, but obesity isn't just, well, you eat too much. It's not necessarily that. Again, back to the overflow of toxicity. If we're eating more chemicals than we are true food, our body's going to do all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And it depends on your genetics a lot of times, as to how that gets expressed. But we also have to look at what the modifiable factors are in each situation. Modifiable being what can this person control that could change their health for the better? Can you control your genetics? No. Can you control your age? No. Can you control your gender? No. Can you control what goes in your mouth? Yes. Can you control what time you go to bed at night? Yes. Can you control how many steps you take in a day? Yes. Now, are you willing to go somewhere else? And we are kind of part cheerleaders, but we try to empower people. But that's not just us. That's a functional wellness approach. That's recognizing every part of our day and every aspect of our life. And we haven't even talked about toxic relationships, right? I mean, what about those people in your life that sabotage all of your good intentions? You have to deal with all of the things. And that's functional wellness.
Yeah. And preparing for our conversation, I read a quote from Hippocrates that says it's more important to know what sort of person has a disease than to know what sort of disease a person has. And it just sounded, that's exactly what functional medicine does.
I love that.
And it's what functional medicine takes to heart. And it's where the practitioners closely examine things like lifestyle, genetics, physiology, where conventional medicine looks at symptoms, functional medicine looks at the underlying cause. Does this mean that functional medicine practitioners create treatment plans for individuals that consider their unique medical history and circumstances with all of that information?
I'd say yes, because that's basically the terrain theory.
Except that we don't treat anything.
Well, we don't treat, let's be clear.
Be clear, yes.
But when you look at what kind of an environment has this body created based on experiences and exposures, What has led to those bad genes being turned on? Because that's only part of the story. So we do have to look at everything that that individual has experienced, everything that that person is living with, living in, putting in their body to make sure that we have a very individualized plan.
Well, and that's it exactly, Elena, because like epigenetics is a whole field of study contained within, functional or in the paradigm of functional wellness. And it's this whole premise that your genes are what loads the gun, right? But your experiences and exposures are what pull the trigger. So it's not just, oh, I got bad genes. My parents should have never reproduced. Well, maybe, but you're here. So
now
let's make the most of that. And just in the time that I've been practicing, oh my goodness, genetics has come so far in what we're able to help people with, just getting to the heart of, oh yeah, you are estrogen dominant and it's because of this issue. Or yeah, you are an anxious mess because you need this, where we can just really pinpoint. And there's still a long way to go. It's still an evolving field. It's fascinating, but it is so helpful.
Well, and what role does patient participation play in the customized plans?
Everything. Because, in the Western model, you are given a pill and you just have to take your pills or go sign up and get your surgery and you just show up. Yeah. Whereas in functional wellness, you cannot take a passenger seat. You are the driver. You have to be the driver. You have to be motivated to do the work because it requires hard things. You have to do the hard things. We tell everyone, I think every single day I tell someone, guess what? There's no magic pill. I wish there was. I would have taken it myself a long time ago.
Or we tell them we left our magic wand at home today. So you have to do hard things.
And you know what? That builds character, builds discipline, and it gives you structure to your life. And then you're taking ownership of it too. And there's a lot of self-worth in that. In a time where you're dealing with potential hopelessness, when you have worth and drive, that hope starts building there again too. And we're going to come back to that because that is everything you're trying to conquer in Western medicine.
Yeah. And does functional medicine encourage collaboration among different healthcare professionals for the benefit of the patient? And if so, do you have any examples of that?
Well, absolutely. When you just look at Western medicine, for starters, that has primary care and then specialists, and they collaborate by sending you to another specialist after another, after another, after another. And then you just feel like, okay, no one's really listening to me. They just keep sending me to someone else. Whereas in functional wellness, it's a whole different experience there with how we like to work together.
Yeah. In functional wellness, you may have an internal medicine doctor and a chiropractor and a naturopath and an acupuncture all practicing in the same, field, but they all may do it a little differently. And that's okay. And highlights a difference too. In Western medicine, you have there's the standard of care, and doctors are held to that. If you do not provide the standard of care, you're going to be in trouble. In functional wellness, we're not over legislated, I guess, in that form. I think it's easy to forget that medicine is considered a practice, and it is a practice because you're dealing with different human beings in very individualized cases, and what works for one isn't always going to work for another. Yet the only tool in the two tools, cut it or drug it, and it's like trying to push a square peg into a round hole. And functional wellness has come along and attempted to say, hey, let's look at it reshaping everything. Let's use the best of whatever works. And so for us, I know sometimes people need that medication, especially thyroid. But there's more to thyroid than one prescription. And unfortunately, the standard of care is very narrow-minded in Western medicine when it comes to thyroid, and they won't consider the whole thyroid pathway. They'll look at one number, maybe two if you're lucky. We're looking at 8 to 10 because we know that it's not just it doesn't begin and end with the thyroid. It goes all the way back to the hypothalamus and it goes all the way to every cell in your body. So we're looking at the entire mechanism of whatever it is we're dealing with. And so any good functional practitioner is going to have an understanding of the synergy of all the body's systems. And yet they may feel uncomfortable or they may be unqualified to do one part of it. We have lots of people that we refer out to. I don't need to drive in all the lanes. I can stay in my lane, and I'm going to help people a lot more if I just do the things I'm good at and send them out to people who can do better for the things I can't do. Because I can tell you this, Crystal, there's no shortage of sick people. And that is the one thing about it. None of us is the end all be all. We all have our specialty, if you will, the thing that we're really good at. And it's good to hone that skill. We always like to learn more, but it's also good and it's better for the client if we recognize, hey, there's this person. I think they're going to do better for you. Go see them.
Yeah.
And so we love to collaborate. We do a monthly gathering here at the office, and we try to bring in a special speaker at least every other month, whether it's a dentist, we just had a chiropractic neurologist come in. It's fascinating. We learn so much. And other people who've never heard of this have their eyes and their minds open to different modalities and different therapies that are out there that could help them.
Because ultimately, we want our clients to get better. And if there's someone who is going to, like Sharon said, do it better than us or come alongside us, we're your biggest cheerleader here. So it's with us, with someone else, all of us together, we just want you to find health. We're not afraid to say we don't have the best answers here.
Absolutely.
We'll talk a little bit about the role of lifestyle changes and mindset shifts, how they play in the journey of someone dealing with an insurmountable health challenge.
Oh, that's a really good question. And some people, I often call, let's not even, functional medicine doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. But if you think about it as lifestyle medicine, all of a sudden it starts to take on more meaning. And I think that this embodies, we're going to change your lifestyle, sleep habits, thought, the way that we frame our thoughts. I have, I go get help from other places when I need it. And I get reminded all the time, would you like to reframe that phrase? When you give power away, where you say, I can't, blah, blah, blah. Like, I cannot give up my morning cup of coffee. Really? Because I bet you could if you had to. And instead, you could reframe that and you can say, I'm going to choose to forgo my morning coffee today and see how things pan out. It's all about how you frame, the idea. And it's not just spouting kooky, fruit basket talk or what. That's not what this is. It's truly about putting the power back in. You're in the driver's seat. You are not just taking orders and doing it because we said to. You're choosing better for yourself. And so I think how somebody decides to live their life plays a huge role in determining how sick or how healthy they're going to become. Because a lot of times we don't know anything. I always say, oh man, I wish I could go back. I'm not one of those, like, I wish I could do this over, except with my kids. I wish that I could go back and I wish that I knew anything. I knew nothing when I had my children, but I read the book. Mm-hmm. The problem was the book was wrong. But even, whether it's, do I vaccinate or not vaccinate? Do I use birth control or do I not? Do I eat out or do I eat at home? Like the obesity epidemic in the US, you can't dent your problem with obesity just being aware of it, but continuing to drive through the fast food line at the local restaurant.
Yep.
Or not walking. you have to do something. Thoughts have to be followed up by actions. And sometimes there's real breakdowns for many reasons. And that's where we try to delve into that and form a relationship to figure out, how do we mobilize this person? How do we get them to make this change? Whether it's getting somebody to go from drinking 8 ounces of water a day to 80 ounces of water a day, doesn't matter how long it takes. We're not giving up. We are very tenacious women here.
Well,
tell you
I
the
love
hard things.
yeah. Well, and having that more positive mindset, I mean, that it actually is kind of hard sometimes. But so can you give any specific practices or approaches that can help someone foster that positive mindset?
Yeah. Oh, yes. There's a lot of easy things, and we're going to talk about a couple of them. You've got to start with your self-discipline and what are you putting into your body, not just food. Think about technology. We spend way too much time on social media apps and wasting time watching silly videos about cats. And sometimes that's okay. You need something to laugh about, and there's enough heaviness in the world.
We say I like my cat videos before bed.
But it's limiting that use, limiting what you're watching, limiting how much you're watching, because screens aren't good for your mental health. Yeah. So just being aware of that and knowing, okay, I shouldn't start my day with that because it's going to just instantly wind you down, or spending too much time at the end of the day that will then affect your sleep. And that's going to affect your mood and emotions and your happiness ultimately. Mm-hmm. But you also have to look at avoiding the foods that are going to shut your body down. I tell people, look at each bite of food you eat. Is it bringing life or death to you? You always have to think, am I doing the best thing I can for my body to help my positive mindset? And it's hard. And that's where we start with baby steps. You have to start with what's doable for you, just learning how to make better choices with the things that you're eating and putting in your body. And to customize healthcare, I mean, that could be something different for different people. Some people take one meal at a time, right? Let's just fix breakfast this month. And then some people, it's like Elena says, let's just work on maybe not so much fast food this month. Everybody needs a little bit different path forward. And that's why having a relationship with your practitioner can really be good. But to the question, I think also practicing gratitude. Are you grateful for the life that you have? Or are you a complainer? Is it never good enough? Yeah. Because if we're not satisfied with the little things, we're usually not going to be satisfied with the big things. Mm-hmm. And having that attitude of gratitude, it can take us a long way, because finding pleasure in the simple things in life, a beautiful sunrise, right? Putting your feet in the grass, things like that can really help ground and center us and keep us rooted in reality. I think also, I think of with this whole question, it's making me think of the monkeys. Remember, see no evil, hear no evil, do no evil. Yeah. I think we could do that here. But thinking before you speak, I mean, what comes out of your mouth? I think, is it a Bible verse that says from the overflow of the heart? Yes, you're paraphrasing, and I'd have to paraphrase with you, but yes. Well, yeah. So and that can be mean, right? Some people are very mean and vindictive, and some people are just victims, and everything that comes out of their mouth reinforces their victimhood. And you will never be a conqueror. You will never be a happy, grateful person if you're always the victim. And there are so many inspiring people throughout history and even in present day who have chosen to not be the victim, but have chosen to overcome, at least in their mind, because we can control our thoughts. It's a lot easier to control our thoughts when we're not inundated with negativity and hatefulness and violence, things like that. I think it's really important to really protect our eyes, to protect our ears, and, watch who you're around. What are your friends like? Because it's a reflection of you. Yeah. I think that's something our parents would say when we were in school. Who are you hanging around with? Well, you guys mentioned that a lot of what you do is cheerleading, encouraging your clients. And that speaks to a support system and how that can contribute to the healing process. And I know that sometimes dealing with a hopeless diagnosis
can be overwhelming for both the individual and their loved ones. So how do they create the support system even at home or just in their life? What can they do besides having you guys as their cheerleaders?
Well, ideally, it's the family, right? Ideally, your spouse or your parent or your child or a real close friend is going to be a support for you, because those supporters, those cheerleaders, they hold us up when we're down, right? They're the ones who help us just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Unfortunately, families are not always capable of being a support system, whether because it's ignorance, just being, and I don't mean that in a mean way, meaning they just do not know anything about functional wellness or living a healthy lifestyle, or maybe they don't value it, or maybe they feel convicted by your actions to improve and change, and they don't want any part of it. Sometimes the people you think are going to be your support end up being the saboteur, right? They're there to sabotage you. Like back to the obesity, we tell somebody, look, I want you to get off sugar for the next 3 months. So no sugar, we're going to do this. We're going to have fruit for dessert, or we're going to, and these are all examples. And you go to family dinner and it's like, oh, don't be that way. Don't be better than the rest of us. Have this piece of cheesecake, or, who do you think you are? And that sounds harsh, but it really does happen. Mm-hmm. Or don't break your mother's heart. Eat the food she made for you. Yes. We get guilt trips about silly things like dessert. It shouldn't matter if to people what we're eating. Isn't the whole idea to be together, right? To enjoy each other's company. And I think that gets lost. But that's why it's important to find people who are on the same journey as you. And that's one of the things we try to create here through community gatherings. We have a beautiful office. People have always said, can I just come hang out here? And we tried to create that kind of environment where people do feel free to come hang out and have a cup of tea and maybe meet somebody traveling the same road they are traveling. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is not everybody likes hard work, and they don't want you shaming them indirectly, because the mere fact that you're doing something different makes them feel guilty.
Yeah, that's so true. And Elena, maybe you could speak to that, but sometimes functional wellness is like something like you guys mentioned that people haven't heard of, and they're skeptical of the benefits of it. And so what advice do you want to give to, if you were to give it to the friends and family members who want to provide support, what would you say to them?
Get involved and try it yourself. I tell people all the time when I've got, sometimes a spouse in here, or say the mom who has to cook for the whole family. And I say, get your whole family on this. Everyone's going to feel better. Show me one person who changes their diet and eats whole food for a whole month. Show me someone whose life isn't going to improve, because I've never seen that. Everyone's going to feel better. And I love it when I had a client this morning who we were going over some results and making the recommendations, and her husband was listening in because he's like, hey, I want her to feel better. And I want her to feel better so much that I'm going to do this with her. Like, he wants to come have his own appointment. But in the meantime, he's like, I'll just start doing this with her. It's like, that is the best kind of built-in support that I wish everyone had. Yeah. And not everyone is going to have it with their spouse. But if you're listening, if anyone's listening and they are the one who needs to support that spouse or child or parent, hey, just try to eat just eat a good meal with some good meat and veggies. It's not going to hurt anyone. And you could really bless that family member or friend by just meeting them where they're at and trying to be a part of that journey with them.
Or lay off the guilt trips.
Yes.
Don't be the person sabotaging all their effort or demeaning their effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the future of healthcare. And so, considering the integration of functional wellness principles for even the most challenging medical cases, what do you envision for that future?
I would like to see the future of healthcare not quite so polarizing, like everything else in our world right now.
True.
It's so polarized, and I mean, COVID did it. And I know I take a risk by saying that, but I'm sorry. When we shut down scientific debate and just labeled everything as hateful, that's not constructive. It doesn't further mankind, and it definitely doesn't help mankind. Functional medicine, functional wellness should stand up to the scientific debate. Anything that we ask somebody to do or make a recommendation for, it should stand the test of, is there data to back this up? And yeah, sometimes what we're doing is based on ancient wisdom, but we also use cutting edge technology. And I think one of the drawbacks is that we lack a lot of the randomized controlled trials, because who wants to study oil of oregano? Who's going to pay for that? There is no pharmaceutical company. There's nobody that stands to gain anything except the oregano growers, and they don't have that kind of money. Yeah. So there's a real disparity, if you will, in the scientific data. There's a lot of conflict of interest in big pharma studies, but everything, it's so political. Not political like our government, but it's so political as far as medicine and big pharma has been the only way accepted for so many decades now that people it's so easy to poo-poo anything natural. And way back in the early 1900s, they made they made up their minds, they resolved to call chiropractors and folk medicine healers quacks. And it's funny because in a lot of areas, in a lot of circles, it's actually a compliment to be called a quack. I've been called a quack and I don't care. I'm like, yeah, by your definition, I'm definitely a quack. And I'm totally okay with that. I would like to see truly open minds to let's not marginalize the value of a good diet, a healthy diet that doesn't necessarily follow the myplate.gov. Let's bring the information to the table. Common sense has to have a seat at the table. Like I said, even your hospital experience, it should look very different than it does today. It should not begin with a stop at the McDonald's in the lobby before you go up for whatever imaging or surgery or procedure you're going to have done. Diet sodas should not be available to people who are on the diabetic diet. Sugar-free pancake syrup should not be available. Well, I'm sorry, to anybody, because it's not real food. I just think that we have so sold out as a system, as a culture, as a society. We've so sold out to big food and big pharma that we have forgotten what it's like to live. And we see people all the time who don't like real food because there's no chemical to it. And it takes time to retrain your taste buds, but food is medicine. Food's your best medicine.
Well, food, yeah.
Real food.
Real food. And that's just going back to, we've already mentioned things like, practices that would be so easy to integrate into Western medicine are the things such as positive thinking, meditation, breath work, sleep hygiene, nutrition, all these things that are easy little practices that I know there are, I'm not saying there's no Western medicine practitioners that aren't open to this or practicing some of this, but I would just love to see it all come together. So it's not one side says, just do this. One side says, just do that. And we can't think, okay, if you are going to take your medication, you could still do meditation and have positive thinking. You can have both. And, with that too, as practitioners, I think this is one of the biggest things that I've noticed. Practitioners don't hold themselves to the same standard that they are speaking for other people. And Sharon and I personally work really hard to hold ourselves to a high standard. Like we do individually, but then we hold each other accountable because we want to make sure that anything that we are asking of a client, that we're willing to do ourselves. And I think that speaks to people when you are saying, okay, here's your recommendations of the hard things. And I love that we have an entire staff that is practicing what we preach. And I can tell my clients, hey, if you have problems, call the office. Don't wait till your next appointment. Call, because anybody who answers the phone here is going
to tell you how to do a coffee enema.
Yes.
We have the weirdest job qualifications ever.
And that is so true, because a lot of people do call and have those questions. They think this is going to be the weirdest question I've ever asked. Like, no, just try us. We've all been there, done that. Try and shock us.
Yeah. And, I think there are cartoons out there, but there's always this whole idea of, well, I mean, you see it in church too, like to have a morbidly obese pastor or a reverend talking about self-control. And it's like, okay. And that doesn't mean that he completely lacks self-control. Maybe he has a metabolic disorder, but it's one of those visuals, right?
Yeah.
But then I think in medicine, when you have doctors that smoke, and like a cardiologist who smokes, it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, how? And for us, we're human beings. We're not perfect. And you know what? Honestly, sometimes we like tequila.
Be sure to not have tequila.
But we only drink the best.
Yeah.
but we do embark on a lifestyle that's balanced. Like, we value our sleep, we value our exercise. I know I drive my family nuts. I don't know about Elena's family. She never talks about her family complaint. My family gets so upset with me because I get up, like they say, at the butt crack of dawn to go walk and then go exercise, because I want 2 hours before I have to go to work, because I want time to take care of myself and I want time to enjoy my morning before I come. I'm always in a better mood. I'm energized and I am consistently sharp for my day when I've had a good night's sleep, I've had a good workout and a good breakfast and a good cup of coffee. makes a big change for me. So I mean, does that make us like visually perfect and to any society standards? No, but we are living our lives in a very balanced and healthy way that will hopefully bring us longevity and a very active life.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what we can hope for.
Well, and those are definitely steps you're talking about, for yourself, but also that what individuals can do to help. But even on a bigger scale, other healthcare providers and society as a whole, to embrace the paradigm shift that you're kind of thinking about for the future. So can you add some more steps to those, kind of, as to not just individuals, but other healthcare providers in society? Well,
lifestyle. If you are trying to be as excellent as you can with your lifestyle and looking at what you're putting in your body, what you're putting on it, what you're using, what are you filling your mind with? These aspects are all going to influence how you value yourself. And you don't have to know how to do it all perfect. I mean, there's so many different voices out there that are telling you what you have to do to have the healthiest life or the best habits. Hey, just do something, work on your lifestyle, so then we can look to each other for example. You got to start with yourself. But then if you also can say, hey, I can look at this other practitioner, this other individual, and wow, I want to try to be like them because they're healthy, they're enjoying life, and it is lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to that end, just choosing wisely how you spend your time. Especially with entertainment, what are you allowing your body to experience? If all you can think about is getting that next high or the next buzz, maybe you're missing some things. A night out dancing, or like we love karaoke, a night out doing that, it can really get you going. But if you're doing it while you're, snort and blow and drinking shots all night, you're probably going to feel so good in the morning. And so I think you have to what do you call entertainment? Is watching people kill each other entertainment to you? Because that's messing with your brain, especially children. are you an adrenaline junkie? Like, do you fry your nervous system? Is that what it takes? Do you have to jump out of an airplane to get any kind of thrill, or watch a horror movie, or, whatever it is? But a lot of people do use they indulge in risk-taking behavior that's not healthy for their body, and it goes beyond skydiving or snorting cocaine. I mean, sometimes it's toxic relationships, or, well, like high risk, sexual behavior, or toxic friendships, or, really extreme diets or experiences that I think sometimes we're so numb, we're just trying to feel something. And that is really important to understand, recognize, and you can overcome that. And that's what I want people to know, because we do deal with addiction too. You can overcome that, but it takes time, because we have to rewire your brain, because you have taught your brain that, the normal thing, sunrise is nothing. You've got to have sunrise with a couple of drinks, or whatever, cigarettes, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important to be willing to reframe your perception of the world around you and what makes you feel good. And that takes some self-awareness.
Yeah, so true. And as we start to kind of wind down here, for any listeners who are facing difficult health situations, what are some practical steps that they can take? So I know you're talking in general and just full spectrum of what, functional wellness is and how to become better. But if someone out there is facing something really serious, what are some first practical steps that they can take to explore their functional wellness options?
No matter what you do, please look for something that goes far beyond mere symptom management. You will never, ever regain health by suppressing symptoms. That does not equal health. And it's important to know, Crystal, herbs and vitamins and things like that that can be symptom suppression too. So it's not just let's replace big pharma for herbs with herbs or enzymes or amino acids or whatever. It truly has to go beyond the pills that we're popping, and it has to go to how are we living our lives? What are we putting on our body, and what are we allowing our mind to experience?
That's an important reminder. I forget.
And if you don't do any other thing, get nutritional help.
Oh, yes.
Please change your diet, drink water. And even that, for some people, they need accountability and they need help. And hey, we can help you wherever you're at in the country listening. We can help you. If you don't have that, please, you got to get the nutritional aspect down. Start eating veggies today.
And all that is perfect for, helping someone kind of get started. That actually is great for prevention too, right? For people who don't have any serious health issues, it might be the same. Is that what you're saying? Kind of for prevention, same kind of thing.
It is. The thing about prevention, I think we said this in our first podcast episode, is you can't measure what you prevent. But sometimes you just have to be okay with that. I think people who really know, I just don't feel the same. I recently had a big birthday, and everyone's like, how does that feel? And it's like, it feels the same as the last one. It's not a measurable difference. I don't want measurable differences year to year. I want to keep living my best life. I measure the quality of my life by how functional I am, how active I am. And I think that's the thing about prevention. Just can't measure it.
Yeah. You can't measure it, and you don't want to wait until something is diagnosable. Prevention is everything, because if you wait until it's diagnosable, that means there's been a whole long pattern of dysregulation and dysfunction that got you to that point. So start doing something today. Start working with a practitioner today to make sure that you don't ever reach that diagnosable state.
Yeah.
Yeah. And forming habits that are going to drive good health outcomes. Your habits matter. All of them.
Yeah. Well, what message of hope and empowerment would you like to leave our listeners with today? And those especially who might be navigating their own journeys with a hopeless diagnosis?
I think I think my message to people, no matter where they're at and how hopeless it seems, never accept that where you are today is the best it's ever going to be, or that what you're doing now is all you can do. Don't subscribe and don't partake in limiting beliefs, and definitely do not practice limiting behaviors. You need to give your body and give your mind every chance and every opportunity to show you how amazing you can feel when you're living life right. I think that's it. And, sometimes it's heavy, and I don't mean it to be heavy, but sometimes we do get people when they're too far gone. But that doesn't mean, and just because I can't extend your life doesn't mean that I can't help you transition well.
Yeah.
How we end our lives is also important. And we want to give people a good life beginning to end. And that's dark. I hated to go there, but I think it's important. Help me out, Elena.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we don't just think, oh, this is it. This is where I am today.
It's important
and
that we don't ever settle. Yeah, it's important that we don't ever settle and think that this is as good as it gets. Because anyone who tells you this is as good as it gets is a false message in your life that you do not need to listen to. No matter what you're dealing with, there is always a way to make it better. Always. No matter what you're dealing with, there's always hope.
Well, after that.
And it's an important, one last thing. It's just an important message. And that's one thing, like, we're here in Dallas, Texas, and we have our practice, but we help people all over the world, because you don't have to come sit across the desk from us. We have a virtual practice that does the same thing, that using labs, using our important measurements, we're able to help navigate to a higher place of function. And that's, a lot of practices out there have that. So I just encourage people, find somebody who's going to help guide you to a better state of health, no matter how you do it.
I love it. And after that great message of hope and encouragement, we found the perfect place to end the episode. We truly hope that you found the information helpful and would love to hear from you, all of our listeners out there. So if you've watched the episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel, and also check us out on Facebook and Instagram. For more information about functional wellness, or if you're struggling with a hopeless diagnosis, please visit k6wellness.com to get more information about scheduling an appointment. And until next time, take care of yourself, because your health is worth fighting for.